is Gina. Today we're going to complete the set we've been working on. In the previous tutorial I made this bracelet and this ring, and we are going to make a necklace that goes nicely with it and a pair of earrings. This is the same set done in a turquoise color, and I just made my dangles a little shorter, and I made my middle dangle shorter than my outside dangles on this one, and this one I made my middle dangle longer than my outside. And I also show you a couple other variations to do this necklace in this video. So let's go ahead and get started, and I'll show you what we need for the necklace and make the necklace first, and then I'll show you what we need for the earrings and make the earrings second. Okay, for this necklace we are going to be using some 18 gauge wire, and I'm using some wire I got at Hobby Lobby. It's just a craft wire, a jewelry craft wire, and it is 18 gauge silver tone. You'll also be using a little bit of 20 gauge, just a few inches of 20 gauge, so I'm using it in the same brand, same color. Then I'm using some 8/0 seed beads, and this is Toho 8/0. I recommend Toho because they have a larger internal hole and will help you get them over your 18 gauge wire, and even sometimes you have to pick and choose ones that will fit over. A few of them will not fit quite as well, but generally they fit pretty well. So use a Toho 8/0, or you don't have to necessarily even use a seed bead for this. It's up to you. You can use any beads you want. You can make this look any way you'd like. You can hang a charm off of it. You can do it how I'm going to do it. Doesn't matter. You'll need some chain. It depends on how long you want to make your necklace, how much chain you will need, but have a nice long length available. I'm using some 8mm round beads, and I've chosen these because I want to continue the set that I'm making with the bracelet and ring and have this match. So these are a simulated moonstone glass bead, and they are 8mm round, frosted white. Then I am going to be using some of my jump rings. So you'll probably need about 7 or 8, probably 7 jump rings. And this is a 6mm jump ring. Nice, hefty, good jump ring that will hold its shape really well. And I also got these at Hobby Lobby, and I think they're called Jewel Store. And then you're going to need either some baling pliers or something that's fairly good diameter around to make your first loop, so you can wrap it around whatever you'd like that is the size of the loop you want to make. I'm going to use these, not baling, but coiling pliers. Then I'm going to use some flat nose, some chain nose, some round nose pliers, and some flush cutters. And then I will be using my nail and nose pliers also. So gather all your things together and let's get started. So I have cut 8 inches of my 18 gauge wire and 4 inches of my 20 gauge wire. Now, as you've do this a couple of times, you can adjust the length of your wire to get any size of focal that you want. This tends to work pretty well for just a nice, good, noticeable focal. So I'm just taking the 8 inches of my 18 gauge wire and just making sure it's nice and neat, straightening it out some. And then I'm just going to bring the two ends together so I can find the center of my wire. You're not going to get an exact center because you're not folding it in half. You just want a loop. And then I'm going to use my baling pliers. I'm going to use the biggest part, or not baling pliers actually, these are coiling pliers, and I'm going to place it on this biggest one. You can find anything that's round that you would like to use. Then I'm just going to bring my wire around and kind of squeeze it together. Now, you can see I don't have a perfect loop, so I'm going to put it back on. I just wanted you to see I want to squeeze these two ends together as much as I can. So I'll squeeze that side and then I'll squeeze this side. I'm using my fingernail. You can use your pliers, you can use your fingers, whatever you like. I don't like to use my pliers on this part because I find that I kind of mar my wire up. So I just kind of squeeze it until I get a nice loop like this. And then I take my wires, make sure they're not crossed, put them next to each other the best I possibly can. You're not going to get them perfect. Just get them together somewhat. That one's not quite bent close enough to the... And just doctor it. Now, so what all I did was put it back on so I could get a little bit better shape here. I have a more steep bend on one side than the other, but that's not really going to show, so it's okay. And then just put these together the best you can. And then cut them so that they're the same length. So I'm going to go right about here and just cut them. Flush cut them. So use this the flat side of your pliers and flush cut them. And that way they're somewhat the same. I mean, they're going to be slightly different simply because we can't get those wires perfectly together. But that's okay. Just get them as close as you can. Then we're going to keep the wires together. And we're going to grab our 20 gauge wire. Let me get you closer here. This is what I have. I'm going to take my 20 gauge wire and about an inch down, I'm just going to loop it around like this. I'm keeping it just slightly away from the very top here, or right where the two wires meet in the loop. And then I'm going to start wrapping the longer length. So I'm going to grab my chain nose so I get a nice tight coil. And once I get my first one, I'll arrange it where I want it. And I'll just start wrapping. And I'm going to wrap 3 times. Then I'm going to scoop my coil up like this. Now I'm just a little bit away from right here. My coil is still moving. It's okay. I'm going to hold on to that and I'm going to wrap this top part to tighten everything up and to move it closer to the joint of the loop here. So not round nose. No. Chain nose. And I'm just going to grab this and start to wrap it. I'm going to bring it all the way around. And then I'm going to scoop my coil together. And then I'm going to wrap this longer one more time. So you can wrap this as many times or as few times as you'd like. Generally, I get it tighter and it stops moving by now, but it hasn't, so I'm just going to wrap it again. There we go. Now it's pretty much in place. And I will take my flush cutters. Make sure you're close enough to see. There's a little tiny tail here. I'm going to flush cut that. And then I am going to push that tail down. Make sure that it's not sharp at all. That's very good. Now I'm going to separate these a little bit and I am going to cut this one. I actually think I want to cut them both on the same side, so I'm going to lift this a little bit and cut right here in the middle. so that both of my tails are on this side and I can make this the back of my necklace. Just make sure it's really tucked in well so it doesn't poke anybody. Oh, good, Gina. Just mar up your wire. Okay, like this. And this is what you've got. Now let me back off a little bit. Separate your wires and kind of straighten them with your fingers, and then grab your nail and nose pliers. And at the very middle portion here, place them in, and then gently bring them out and curve your wire as you do that, nice and slowly. And then do the other side the same way. I'm going to turn it this way. And this one has a steeper curve, so I'm going to curve it again. It's like that. And you can mess with it as much as you need to. Just be gentle. Don't go crazy with it. And get it a nice shape, the shape that you would like. You can bring it out further. You can leave them in closer, however you want to do it. I'm going to curve this one just a little bit more. There. And then at this point, you can either put beads on or you could not put beads on. If you don't want to put beads on, then you can just make your end loops like this. And I'll show you how to make your end loops. So this one, I just left it plain. I did put a bead in the middle, and I'll show you how to do that too. But at this point, I want it to match my bracelet. So I'm going to pick up an 8/0 and slide it down on both sides here. And when you use 8/0s with 18 gauge, make sure you use Tohos, and sometimes you'll have to kind of sort through them. Sometimes some of them won't fit, some of them fit perfectly. You just never know. Like this. And then I'm just going to start putting on some beads until it looks the way I want it to look. So I'm going to drop down a couple. Maybe some 8/0s in between. Yeah, see, I have a bunch that do not want to go on. And then I'll go through a phase where all of them fit perfect. So I don't know, and maybe different lots because I have my beads in bulk and I mix them together. So and that's what that looks like so far. I'm going to continue putting the beads on until I get about here, and we'll be right back. Okay, so I put 6 beads on this side with 8/0s in between, and just to keep it from all my beads falling off all the time, I'm going to go ahead and bend this side out, so I wanted to show you. But you want to bead until you've retained 1/2 inch of your wire. So whatever length you have, whatever size beads you're using, just retain 1/2 inch of wire at the end. And then grab your flat nose pliers and just bend that wire out and over your beads. And then go ahead and do the other side. But I'm just going to go ahead and roll this one into a loop so I can show you how to do this. So this, I've just laid this part over my forefinger, and I'm going to grab my pliers, and probably somewhere a little over halfway down towards the bigger end, I am going to grab my wire at the very end, and I'm just going to start to turn towards me in a 1/2 loop like this. And then I'm going to bring my wrist down and around the wire like this, and then just continue to kind of roll. And I can adjust on my pliers where I need to be to make a perfect loop. Just like that. And then I can always straighten out my loop. Then I'm going to go ahead and bead this side and finish it the exact same way. Okay, so this is what this looks like. And I can just manipulate it with my fingers a little bit to make it look the way I want it to look. To make it look the way I want it to look. I can open it up a little bit, I can close it a little bit, I can curve it a little bit, whatever it is that you would like your shape to be. And you can straighten up your ends. Make sure both of your loops are flat against your bead mat like this, the same as this one down here. None of them are curved funny directions. And then we're going to cut 3 pieces of chain. Of course, you can dangle off this anything you want. You can put a charm on here, you can put whatever you want. I'm going to just make a little decoration with chain and my focal beads. So I have got 1 piece of chain that's a little bit longer than 2 pieces of chain that are exactly the same. Now with my chain, when I cut it, I like to just slide it on a piece of wire or a head pin or something that I can just look at it. So I'll just put it on. I'll cut 1 piece and then I'll put it on like a head pin like this, or this is just a piece of wire, and I will look at the lengths and cut the second one the same length as the first one. And then I cut one just a little bit longer, so I'll show you what it looks like. So I get this one about a ½ inch longer. Doesn't matter, your lengths truly don't matter. Make them as long or as short as you would like. Then you're going to get a couple of head pins out, and we are going to put some of our beads on head pins and then attach them to the chain and attach them to the focal. Okay, so I went ahead and got 3 head pins out. I'll put that in caption in the material list. I forgot it when I was getting my stuff together. And what we're going to do is we are going to wire these beads directly to our chains. So pick up one of your head pins, slide a bead on it. Then grab your round nose pliers. Place your plier right up against that bead onto the wire. And then place it where you want, the size of your loop, and then bend the wire over that back part of the plier, just like that. And then twist your wrist and place your plier into the bend you just created. And then bring your wire up and over that plier. Twist your wrist slightly and come around, completing the loop. So this is what you have. Then you're just going to grab a hold of that loop and lift this wire just a little bit, just like this. And that way it's open and you can slide your chain, any one of them, it doesn't matter which one, we're going to do them all the same. Slide the bottom loop of the chain on there, then grab your chain nose pliers, hold on to that loop right here, bend this up parallel. I'm going to switch hands just so I can wrap with my right hand. You can wrap with your fingers. This is pretty soft head pin, but I'm going to wrap with my flat nose, or actually my round nose, just so I get a neater wrap. So I'm just going to start wrapping around that wire between the loop I created and the bead, and just wrap it nice and neat, one coil on top of the last, and continue wrapping it until it's just around the top of my bead here. You can go as far or as little as you'd like. And then I'm just going to get as close as I can with my flush cutters and cut that wire off. And then I am going to tuck that little tail in just a little bit so it's not pokey. These little wraps can be really pokey, so and grab people's clothes and stuff, so just make sure you get that tucked in there pretty good. And then on the other end, this is my longest one, so I'm going to put it on first. I will put my 2 shorter ones on either side. I will wrap them exactly the same way, like this. And then I will connect one to the loop on one side. I'm just going to go ahead and put my middle one on first, and then after I make these 2, I will attach them on either side. So I'm going to grab a jump ring, going to find the split in my jump ring, which is right there, and I'm going to put my flat nose pliers on this side, this half of the split. Then I'm going to grab my chain nose pliers and vertically place them on the other side of the split and just twist my wrist and open that jump ring. I am going to slide that jump ring on the last loop of my chain. I'm going to put on my focal and then on the loop here, and then just close it exactly the same way I opened it. Shimmy it a little bit, make sure it's nice and flush. And there is my first bead. Now that's a pretty long chain, but that's okay. I'm going to leave it long this time, but you can make it as long or as short as you want. If I decide I don't like it, I can always shorten my chain. But I'm going to go ahead and leave that. I'm going to make my other 2 beads, put them on, and we'll be back. Okay, so that's what that looks like. And since these dangles are so long, I may decide to shorten them. But I'm going to make the part that goes up around my neck a little bit shorter, simply because that way this will hang right about collarbone length, and then these can hang down the chest. So I am going to measure out some chain. I'll just take my chain, I'll lay my my focal on a beadboard. Let me see if I can do this and actually show you. Never really fits well into my camera view, but we're going to do this. I'm going to lay this right on the 0, kind of straighten these out, and then I will measure right to the 8 here, which will make me a 16-inch necklace. I actually will measure to the 9 with my chain because 16 is too small. So I'm going to go up to the 9. That will make me an 18-inch necklace. So right in this area, I will cut my chain. Then I will cut another piece exactly the same length, and we will attach those. So go ahead and cut the length of chain that you want to make the length of necklace that you would like. And we'll be back. Okay, so I have cut chain to the length that I want my necklace to be. And I've cut both exactly the same length, of course. I've got now a nice little toggle clasp. Because this chain is small, I'm just going to use a little toggle. Of course, you can use whatever kind of clasp you would like to use. Now I am going to open a jump ring, just like I've been doing. Just twist it open. And I am going to slide it through my chain and then slide it on the end of my necklace focal. And then I am going to close it, just like I've been closing them all along. Just twist it shut and shimmy it a little bit, make sure it's nice and flush. And then I will do the same thing on this side. I'm placing my jump ring again onto, that one's hard to see the split. Okay, where are you, where are you? There you are. Alright, so I'll open this one and put it on here. Slide the clasp on, close it. Then I'll do the exact same thing on the other side. And now my necklace is complete. Okay, and now I'm going to show you the little variation that I promised to show you with the bead. So I have this little metal barrel bead. You can use anything that will fit over your double wires. This one has about a 2mm hole, and I'm going to slide it down. I've made my loop exactly like I showed you. I put my wires together exactly like I showed you, cut the ends, and now I'm just going to slide this bead over both the wires. And it fits nice and tightly. I just slide it all the way down like this, and then I can separate my wires and then just curve them like I did before. just like that. And then I can mess with them and make them, you know, better. However I want them to be shaped. This one seems to be arguing with me a little bit. I'll get it. And then you have the same thing without having to wrap the center. And you can play with your wires, get them a little bit better. You can drop beads down on it, or you can just leave it like this and put a charm on it and curl your ends. The same thing, exactly. Now I have made a couple, so you can see this one I slid a bead down on, and then I just put on my charm with a jump ring, and then my chain on the end and a lobster claw clasp, and that one turned out really cute. You can also put some on this one. I just slid some mushroom beads down. These are check mushroom beads. I made this much shorter because I wanted it, it's a heavier focal, so I wanted it to just be shorter. So I just slid some mushroom beads down, and then I connected some mushroom beads on the bottom with jump rings. I just slid it through the hole on the mushroom bead. And these are larger mushroom beads. They're probably about 8mm. And just put them on my focal. There's a couple jump rings on the end. I can connect chain, or I can take these jump rings off, and I can connect some beading wire with a crimp bead and put some more mushroom beads on, however I want. This turns out really pretty this way. You can do this a million different ways. And this one I made basically the same as I just made the one on video here. Instead of making my middle one longer, I made my middle chain shorter on this one, and I used turquoise beads, and it turned out really pretty too. So let me show you with the bracelet and the ring and everything. Let me clean this up and I'll show you what my set looks like. So here are two complete sets. This is a gemstone one, and this is the one with my simulated moonstone, and I think it looks a really nice little set. So next I will work on a pair of earrings. Okay, and here is the earring I've made. Just a little dangle on the bottom, and then kind of a looped wire like I did on the bracelet. Now this side looks like that, and the other side looks like this. You can have either side be your front. It doesn't matter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a head pin, 2 of my 8mm round beads, 2 of my 8/0 seed beads, a 4-inch piece of 20 gauge wire, and an ear wire, of course. I'm going to start by making a dangle for my earring by putting my head pin on my bead, and then I am going to grab my round nose pliers and hold it close, tight up against the bead, bend my wire over my the back part of my pliers, the one that's away from me, and then I'm going to turn my wrist away from me and into the bend I've just created. Then I'm going to bring the long piece of wire over the top of the plier as far as I can bring it, turn my wrist just a little, and bring the wire underneath to create a loop. Now if your loop is not quite centered like mine, you can go into your loop on that side and just kind of move it over like this. And then I'm going to grab my chain nose pliers, bring the long wire parallel to my pliers, and then I can just start wrapping. Now I'm going to change hands simply because I wrap better with my right hand. I'm going to hold this with my left hand, and I'm going to use my round nose pliers to make my wrap because it's just neater that way. And I'm just going to wrap. And I'll just come down around the top of the bead a little bit. Cut this off. Boy, there we go. And then I will just tuck that little extra tail in. So that it's not pokey. just like that. And there's my dangle bead. Now I am going to start the main part of my earring here. I'm going to straighten out my wire a little bit. And then I am going to make a loop at the end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my flat nose pliers and about a 1/2 inch here, I'm just going to bend it over like that. Then I'm going to put this bent over part over my forefinger on my left hand. With my right hand, I will grab a hold of my chain nose pliers and I will begin to turn. Let me see how big of a, I made a pretty good size loop. So I'm going to go right about here on my plier and I'm going to go to the very end of the wire and just start turning. Then I'm going to reposition my hand and continue to turn. Just like I showed you in the earlier loops, just make a loop at the end of your wire here. I'm going to straighten that out a little bit, like that. And then I'm going to grab a 8/0 seed bead and my 8mm round and an 8/0 seed bead. Then I am going to place my pliers right about here so that it gives me a little bit of movement once I bend my wire. So right here, then I'm going to bend my wire over. I'm going to bring my pliers by twisting my wrist away from me into the bend of the wire I just created. Then I'm going to bring this excess wire over the top, bring my wrist towards me, and complete my loop. Now I can perfect my loop a little bit, and you should see that you will have some movement on your bead here, and that's what we want. Grab a hold of your loop that you've just created and just bring your wire down and around once, like this, and then make sure you still have some movement so that you can come down around with your wire underneath that 8/0 seed bead and around the loop you created here. Bend it around, and you may just have to manipulate it until you can get it to go around real well, and then bring it back up around your bead. Grab your chain nose pliers or your round nose or something and start to wrap this wire around your first loop that you created. And I'm just going to wrap it once or twice, or probably twice, 2.5 times, something like that. Get it around there as much as I can. And then I can just cut that little excess off right there. And tuck it in with my chain nose pliers. And you can make these wraps any way you want. They might look a little different each one. Just try to make them somewhat the same so that your earrings are somewhat the same. My loop is really big on this one. I wonder if it's that big. Yeah, they're pretty much the same. Now this loop I can open and close. So I just grabbed this one. This is the bottom loop. And because it's just slightly bigger than the other, I am going to just cut it just slightly. I'm just going to modify it just slightly. Grab my round nose pliers and bring it back around. I think that looks a little better. Now I can just twist it open and grab the loop one that I made, the looped bead, and put it on there and then close that. And then I have another wrapped bead, see? And this side can be the front or the other side can be the front. This one isn't quite as wrapped as pretty as the other one, but they're good. They're pretty close. And then I'm just going to open my ear wire, put it on this loop, and close it. And now I have a set of earrings to go with my necklace. Let me get this stuff out of the way. This is my necklace and bracelet and ring. Let me zoom out so you can see. And there's a cute little set. Hope you enjoyed this tutorial. See you later. Bye-bye.